What if I told you that you don't need a side hustle? You don't need to win the lottery, and you definitely don't need some complicated investment strategy to completely change your relationship with money. What you need is one small decision. One. Every single month. And by the end of the year, you're not the same person with money that you were in January. Not because anything huge happened, but because 12 small things happened, one after another, and they stacked. Today I want to tell you about a year in someone's life. Her name is Maya, and I want to be upfront with you. This isn't a rags to riches story. Nobody wins the lottery in this video. Nobody gets a viral side hustle that makes 6 figures overnight. This is a story about a habit, and honestly, habits are a lot more interesting than miracles, because habits are something you can actually copy. Maya is 29. She lives in Phoenix, Arizona, in a 1-bedroom apartment that's a little too expensive for what it is. But the AC works, and that matters when it's 110 degrees outside for 4 months straight. She works as a marketing coordinator for a mid-sized company, makes about $52,000 a year. Not nothing. Not amazing. The kind of salary where, on paper, you should be fine, and in reality, you're checking your bank balance before you order anything, even a coffee. She had about $4,800 sitting on a Capital One card. Not from some crazy spending spree, just life. A car repair here, a vet bill for her cat there, a few months where rent went up and her paycheck didn't. The minimum payment ate a chunk of every check, and the balance barely moved. She had a 401k through work because HR signed her up automatically, but she'd never once logged in to look at it. She didn't really know what was in it. She just knew money came out of her paycheck and went somewhere. Maya wasn't irresponsible. She wasn't blowing money on anything wild. She just never thought about money as a system. Money came in, money went out, and the space in between felt like fog. And every January she'd think, okay, this is the year I get serious. And by February 15th, that plan was already dead, buried under whatever life had thrown at her that month. Here's the thing I want you to notice, because it's the whole point of this video. Maya didn't fail at her financial goals because she was lazy or undisciplined. She failed because she kept waiting for the big moment. The raise, the bonus, the day she'd finally sit down and figure it all out. And that day never came, because that day doesn't exist. Change doesn't happen in one big decision. It happens in one small decision, repeated until it becomes who you are. So let me walk you through Maya's year. 12 months, 12 small decisions. And I think by the end, you're going to see exactly where you could start your own. January. It started almost by accident. Maya was scrolling on her lunch break and came across a video. Not even a finance video, really. More of a random recommendation where someone said, "Tonight, just write down everything you spent today." That's it. Don't judge it, don't plan around it, don't make a budget, just write it down. Maya thought, that's kind of a dumb tip. And maybe that's exactly why she tried it, because it felt too small to be intimidating. That night, she sat on her couch with her phone, opened the Notes app, and typed it out. Coffee from the Starbucks drive-thru on the way to work, $6 and change, lunch from the Chipotle near her office, about $13. A Target run on the way home that was supposed to be just shampoo and somehow became $34, and a DoorDash order for dinner because she was too tired to cook. Another $28 with the fees and tip total for one regular Tuesday, about $81. She didn't feel shocked. She just closed her phone and went to bed. But the next night, she did it again. Not because she felt inspired, just because she'd done it the night before, and not doing it felt weirdly like quitting something. And the night after that, same thing. By the end of January, Maya had 3 weeks of daily entries in her Notes app. Nothing had changed about her bank account yet, but something had changed in her head, even if she couldn't quite name it. February. This is where it got interesting. Maya was scrolling back through 3 weeks of entries one Sunday morning, and she noticed a pattern. Every single Friday, without fail, she ordered DoorDash. Not because Friday was special, just because by Friday she was exhausted, and ordering food felt like a reward for surviving the week. 4 Fridays, 4 orders, and each one averaged around $35 once you added the delivery fee, the service fee, and the tip. That's $140 a month, just on Friday dinners, that she had genuinely never thought of as a thing. It was just Friday. She didn't ban DoorDash. That's important. She didn't go cold turkey and swear she'd never order again, because we all know how that ends. Instead, her second small decision was this: On Fridays, she'd cook something simple first and only order delivery if she still wanted to after that. Just a small pause, a tiny speed bump between I'm tired and $35. And here's what actually happened. The first Friday, she made pasta with jarred sauce and Parmesan, took 15 minutes, and by the time it was done, she wasn't hungry enough to also order food. The second Friday, same thing. By the fourth Friday, ordering DoorDash on a Friday night had quietly stopped being automatic. It became a choice again, instead of a reflex. And when something becomes a choice instead of a reflex, you start saying no to it sometimes, not out of willpower, but because you're actually deciding. March threw Maya a curveball. Her car, a 2014 Honda Civic with almost 140,000 miles on it, needed a new alternator. $310, money she did not have sitting around. She put it on the Capital One card, the same card she'd been chipping away at, and watched the balance go right back up. She felt that familiar punch in the gut, the "see, this is why nothing ever changes" feeling. This is the moment a lot of people quit. They think, I just started trying, and the universe immediately punished me for it, so what's the point? But Maya didn't quit, and here's the real reason why. Writing down her spending took maybe 3 minutes a night. Stopping something that small felt almost embarrassing. Like, what exactly would she be giving up? 3 minutes? It was too small to dramatically quit, so she kept going. The smallness of the habit is what protected it. A big system gets abandoned the moment things go wrong. A 3-minute habit just continues because there's nothing to dramatically walk away from April. Maya kept tracking. Kept doing her Friday cook first thing, even though sometimes she still ended up ordering DoorDash anyway, and she wrote that down too. No guilt, just data. One evening, her roommate from college, who she still texts constantly, asked her, "Wait, are you doing a budget now?" And Maya said, "No, I'm just writing down what I spend." Her friend said, "Huh? Okay." And that was it. No big lecture, no spreadsheet, no financial intervention, just a quiet little habit running in the background of her life. And around the middle of April, something small happened. Maya was at Target, her favorite place to accidentally spend $60, and she saw a cute throw blanket. $22, not expensive, the kind of thing she would have just tossed in the cart without thinking twice. But she caught herself thinking, I like this, but tonight I'd have to write it down, and right now isn't really the time. Not I can't afford it. Not I shouldn't, just not right now. She put it back and kept walking. That's not deprivation. That's just a tiny shift in how her brain was processing decisions. Now, I want to pause here for a second because I think this is important. What's happening with Maya isn't really about cutting expenses. It's not about turning into someone who never enjoys anything, never gets a coffee, never orders takeout again. That's not sustainable, and honestly, it's not the point of this channel either. We're not about deprivation here. What's actually happening is that Maya is starting to see her money. And once you can see something clearly, you start relating to it differently. So here's a question for you, if you're still with me. Do you know what you spent today? Not this month, today. If you don't, that's completely normal. That was Maya in January too. But if this story is starting to feel familiar, hit subscribe so you don't miss where this goes, because the next few months are honestly where it gets good. May. By the end of April, Maya noticed that some days she had a little money left over that she hadn't immediately spent, which had basically never happened before. It wasn't much. Like $20, maybe $30 some weeks. In the past, that extra money would just sort of dissolve. A little something here, a little something there, and by the time she checked again, it was gone, and she couldn't tell you what it went to. So Maya's third decision, well, fourth if you're counting, was to open a separate savings account, just a basic one, through the same bank. Took about 5 minutes on her phone. She named it Emergency Fund, which felt almost like a joke at first, because $40 doesn't feel like much of an emergency fund. But every time she had a little left over at the end of the week, she moved it there instead of letting it sit in checking. By the end of May, that account had about $90 in it. $90. That's like 2 DoorDash orders. But it was hers, untouched, sitting separately, and something about that separateness mattered more than the amount. Here's why that works. And it's not magic, it's just psychology. When money sits in your checking account, your brain treats it as available, it's in play. It's part of the game. But when you move it somewhere else, even somewhere with a slightly silly name like emergency fund, your brain starts to file it under not mine to spend right now. It's the same dollar, but it feels different, and that feeling changes what you do next. June, Maya added something small. She started checking that savings account most mornings. Not to do anything with it, just to look. Sounds a little strange, but here's what it does. When you see a number, even a small one, slowly going up, your brain gets a tiny hit of satisfaction, a real one, just a small one. And over time, that starts to flip something. Saving stops feeling like a sacrifice and starts feeling a little bit like a game. Okay, what's it at today? That's a completely different feeling than, ugh, I guess I have to save money. That same month, Maya's sister was getting married in San Diego, and Maya needed to fly out and pay for a hotel for 2 nights. In the old days, this would have gone straight on the Capital One card, no question. But this time, she'd been quietly setting aside a little extra, not because she planned the wedding trip exactly, just because she'd gotten into the habit of putting a bit more into that savings account whenever she could. She covered almost the whole trip without touching the credit card. On the flight home, she had this thought: I didn't do anything dramatic. I just did things a little differently than I used to. That's it. No big speech to herself, just a quiet sense of, okay, that actually worked. July and August. Summer in Phoenix means you're basically living indoors, which weirdly helped because there was less temptation to go out and spend money on activities. Maya noticed something else around this time. The dread she used to feel in the last week of every month, that please don't let anything break before payday feeling, had gotten quieter. Not gone completely, but quieter. Because now there was a small cushion. Not a big one, a couple $100, but a couple $100 between you and total panic changes everything about how you make decisions. You stop making choices out of fear and you start making them out of actual choice. There's something Maya read around this time that stuck with her. The real difference between being broke and being financially okay isn't really about the number in your account. It's about your time horizon. When you're broke, you think about today. What can I afford to eat today? What bill is due tomorrow? There's no room to think further out because your brain is busy just trying to get through the week. But the moment you have even a small buffer, your horizon stretches. You start thinking, what do I want 3 months from now, instead of how do I survive until Friday? That's not a small shift. That's actually huge, even though it doesn't look like much from the outside. September. This is where Maya made her biggest move of the year, and even this wasn't dramatic. She logged into her 401k for the first time. Genuinely the first time after working at this job for almost 3 years. And she found out 2 things. First, her company matched 50% of what she contributed, up to 4% of her salary. She had been contributing 3%, not because she'd decided that, but because that's whatever the default was when HR set it up, and she'd never touched it. Second, she realized that by not contributing the full 4%, she was leaving free money on the table. Actual free money. Her company's match on that extra 1% was only about $17 a month. Small, but it was a 100% return, instantly, guaranteed. Nothing in the entire stock market guarantees that, so she bumped her contribution from 3% to 4%. On a $52,000 salary, that's about an extra $17 a paycheck coming out, and $17 extra a month going in from her employer, completely free. Maya didn't become a stock market expert overnight. She still didn't fully understand what a Roth IRA was versus a traditional 401k, and that's okay. That's a different video for a different month. What mattered in September wasn't expertise. It was that she finally looked, and looking took 10 minutes. October, 8 months into this. Maya's younger cousin, who's in college, was over for dinner one night and asked, kind of randomly, "Do you have, like, savings? Or is that a whole adult thing nobody actually has?" And Maya almost laughed, because a year ago the honest answer would have been no, and please don't ask. But this time she said, yeah, actually, not a lot, but yeah. And her cousin just nodded and went back to her food. It was such a small moment, but Maya sat with it for a second after. A year ago she couldn't have answered that question. Now she could. Small, but real. November. Maya pulled up her notes from the entire year, 10 months of daily entries by this point, and looked at the whole picture for the first time. It wasn't a straight line going up. There were rough months. The car repair in March, a higher than usual electric bill in July because of the AC running non-stop, A couple weeks in September where she just stopped tracking for like 5 days because she was swamped at work, then picked it back up. But overall, the trend was up, slowly, almost invisibly, month to month, but undeniably looking at the whole year at once. There's something people who study habits talk about a lot. For roughly the first 3 months, you don't believe what you're doing matters. It feels too small. For the next 3 months, you start to notice something's different, but you're not sure if it's real or if you're imagining it. And it's usually only in the second half of the year that it clicks. I'm not the same person I was. Not my bank account me. The way I think about money is just different now, and that's the actual win. Because circumstances will always throw curveballs, car repairs, rent increases, surprise vet bills. But if how you think has changed, you can handle whatever shows up. That's not about having a certain amount of money. That's about how your brain processes money. And that's worth more than any specific dollar amount. Also in November, Maya was venting to a coworker, Jordan, who said almost exactly what Maya used to say. I don't get it. I make decent money. But by the end of the month, there's just nothing left. Maya recognized herself instantly, and she said honestly, just try writing down what you spend. Every day. Doesn't have to be anything fancy. Notes app, 3 minutes. Jordan looked unconvinced, said, and that actually does something? Maya just shrugged and said, I don't know if it'll do anything for you, but it did something for me. That's how this stuff actually spreads. Not through some guru, just one person telling another person something true. Here's the actual point I want you to take from all this. The 1% rule isn't really math. Nobody's bank account literally grows by 1% every single day. That's not how this works. It's a way of thinking. It means a small action, repeated daily, that improves your situation even slightly, creates a massive gap over a year compared to doing nothing. Not because any single action is impressive on its own, because it repeats 365 times, and every repetition reinforces the one before it, kind of like compound interest, except instead of compounding in a bank account, it's compounding in your brain. Every time you do your small thing, you're reinforcing a quiet identity. I'm someone who pays attention to my money. And eventually, that stops being something you have to try to do. It's just who you are. December. The year wraps up. Maya isn't rich. She didn't pay off the entire Capital One balance. It went from $4,800 down to about $2,900, which honestly, given the car repair in March, she was pretty happy with. Her emergency fund has a little over $600 in it. Not life-changing on its own. But it's hers, it's separate, and she's not waiting for a paycheck to feel okay. Her 401k contribution is higher, and for the first time she actually understands roughly what's in there and why. The end-of-month dread is quieter. She knows where her money goes, and just knowing that is worth a lot, even before you change anything else. And the biggest thing? Maya has a habit now. Not some elaborate system with spreadsheets and color-coded categories, just every day, one small thing related to money. That's part of who she is now. Her best friend asked her in December, okay, but seriously, what did you actually do this year? Like specifically? And Maya thought about it for a second and said, I started noticing things. That's it. That was the whole answer. She started noticing. I want to say something about year 2, because year 1 is really just the foundation. Year 2 is a completely different game. Once you have the habit of noticing, once you have a small cushion, once you actually understand your spending, you start thinking about the next step. Not because someone's pushing you to, because you actually want to. That's the moment money stops being this source of constant low-level dread and starts being something you're a little bit curious about. What else could I try? What if I added one more small thing? That's the shift from just surviving to actually building something. And it doesn't happen in some big motivational moment. It happens quietly after a year of small things. At the very end of December, Maya wrote one line in that same Notes app where she started tracking spending back in January. It said, next year, figure out what investing actually means for me. Not a 12-point plan, not a number, just a direction. Because a year ago, she didn't have the bandwidth to even think about the future. Now she does. I want to talk to you directly for a second. If you're watching this, something about your money is probably bothering you. Maybe you can't quite name what it is. Maybe it's that vague feeling that money just disappears every month and you genuinely couldn't tell someone where it went. Maybe it's that little knot in your stomach every time your phone buzzes with a bank notification. Maybe it's just a sense that you should be doing better than you are. Start with one thing tonight. Open your phone, Notes app, whatever you've got, and write down everything you spent today. Don't judge it. Don't make a plan. Don't decide you're going to change your whole life starting tomorrow. Just write down today. That's your 1%. And if you do it again tomorrow, that's your second one. And so on. I'm not going to promise you'll be financially free in a year. Nobody can honestly promise that. And if someone does, that's your sign to close the video. What I can tell you is this. In a year, you'll know things about your money that you don't know right now. And that knowledge changes how you spend, which changes what's left over, which changes how you feel. One thing leads to the next. Slowly, quietly, but it doesn't stop. A habit isn't a heroic moment. Heroic moments end fast. A habit is a quiet daily decision that eventually becomes automatic. And once it's automatic, you don't need willpower anymore. You just need the system. And the system starts with one small thing. If Maya's year felt like it could be your year too, hit that like button. It's a simple way of saying, yeah, this is me. And let me know in the comments, are you already tracking what you spend in some way? Or is this the year you start? I genuinely read these because they tell me what to make next. And one last thing before you go. This video isn't really about money. It's about the fact that you're capable of changing, not through some massive overhaul, but through small daily choices that stack up. Money just happens to be one of the easiest places to see that play out, because it's measurable. You do the small thing, and eventually you see the result. Small, maybe slow, but real. And that builds a kind of confidence that spreads into everything else. The way you make other decisions, the way you look at opportunities, the way you see yourself. And all of it can start with 3 minutes tonight and one simple question. What did I spend today? Thanks for watching all the way through. If you want more honest, no-hype conversations about real money stuff, subscribe. I've got more of these coming. See you in the next one.